First of all, a very good presentation. A couple questions for you. In reference to the design of the outfall, did you guys consider it being possibly expanded to pick up other portions of the city, or just specifically for the centralized system that exists right now?
For this question, I'm going to refer to Yifan.
We designed the outfall to accommodate the Sistema Central, which is the largest wastewater system currently in Havana. Yeah.
And the cost that you presented there, the cost is just specifically for the outfall, it wouldn't include costs of the upgrade of the pumping facility, et cetera, right?
Correct. It would include the cost of the outfall as well as it would include the cost of chlorination.
You described the sort of the treatment that it's being provided now. It's basically just primary treatment, which is, you know, just settling, remove some of the solids. Was that always the case? I mean, did they abandon some secondary treatment, or they never consider secondary treatment? Because it seems to be pretty primitive for such a large urban area. I mean, pretty bad, actually.
Well, actually, there is a current outfall off the coast of Playa del Chivo, and that serves as additional treatment before it's discharged into the ocean. That'll provide the additional treatment for the wastewater.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is the treatment, before it goes to the outfall, the only treatment that it receives is settling, basically, in grit chamber and a settling tank, again, it looks like. Beyond that, there's no other treatment.
No, there's not. You know, with the exception of the current outfall, which is beyond its design.
But that's just dilution.
Right, which is just dilution. So currently, no. Our proposed outfall will include disinfection as well as a more suitably designed diffuser at the end. It would be longer, deeper, send it out to the ocean farther, where it would achieve a more proper dilution. It would meet all ambient water quality standards for the surrounding areas.
Did you consider the practicality of doing secondary treatment to some of this waste?
We did consider doing secondary and tertiary treatment. We came to the conclusion that we would like to utilize the current infrastructure there, which, you know, is their outfall. And it's a pretty typical design in the Caribbean, utilizing outfalls. And we decided that they already have most of the infrastructure there, you know, just redesigning what they have currently, improving on it would be the most feasible thing currently for there. Maybe sometime in the distant future, maybe they could pursue, you know, secondary, tertiary treatment. I know that's becoming sort of a norm here. We feel like currently at Cuba right now, this is something that could be implemented immediately, as opposed to introducing secondary, tertiary treatment. It might be a process that would take, you know, 10, 15, 20 years to, you know, completely design it from the ground up. This is something here that could be implemented immediately.
This type of pipe, it looks like the kind of the type that around here is used for French drains and so on. Has it been used for outfalls and marine environment and other places?
Oh yeah, HDPE is a pretty typical pipe. You know, as mentioned during the presentation, it's very easy. It's very nice to install as opposed to a concrete pipe, which would just sink. It's as far as the HDPE pipe concerned, it's relatively, you know, it's still a task to install, but it's relatively simpler to install, you know, because it floats. It could be towed out, and it is durable. It could be anchored to the bottom, and has a little bit of flexibility in it to combat wave forces. But it is a pretty typical material for outfall design.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Excellent. I believe Carlo covered more of the questions that I have for you, but in your preliminary design, and maybe probably a continuation of the question he had, is how much attention do you put into the reduction of solids, knowing that, you know, too many solids goes into the outflow may impair the use of the outflow. That compared to the assistance system they have in place, how much attention do you put to that?
To the reduction of solids?
Right.
The current system right now is, you know, bar screening and grit chambers, which does remove some of the bigger solids. The focus of removing the bigger solids for us would be, we want to basically prevent the outfall from clogging. It's the infrastructure they currently have, and from what we've seen, it hasn't had any, it hasn't had any clogging problems. Typically, the problems you'll see on the outfall currently is it's cracking and it's leaking, but we haven't heard of anything about whether it's being clogged by the treatment currently presented before going into the outfall. So we decided to use the current infrastructure in the bar racks and the grid chambers.
Okay. The current section of the pipe that you're planning to install by sections, I believe is in the order of like a 12 some meters, the section?
I'll refer this to Yifan.
Our total design diffuser will be about 600 meters long.
No, I'm talking about the
The
section
diffuser.
of the pipe. When you,
Yes, and our design diffuser is about 120 meters long.
probably I'm not making myself clear. I'm talking about the sections of the pipe that you're gonna fuse pipe by pipe in order to get.
Okay.
I think you're saying you're
Okay.
gonna be using
Yeah.
sections of
I-
12 point,
Okay, okay, I guess you're talking about the installation process.
right.
Okay, well, there are different ways that we could have the pipe delivered to the site. One of the ways is it could be delivered with massively long pipes. They could deliver it this way, or they could deliver it in shorter spurts. The advantages and disadvantages to longer versus shorter is longer, it's a little bit more difficult to transport to site. You could run the risk of it cracking in that. As opposed to bringing, let's say, bringing it in 10, 20 meter sections, it's nicer because you could fit it right onto a container, which is what we would be going with.
Well, still 10 meters is like a 30 some feet, so like a 32 feet, I believe so. I believe
Right.
they are probably standard sections of 20 feet, that would probably be easier to install. And I understand your concern about the joining the pipe, fusing the pipe, the leakage and all that.
Right. Okay.
All right, thanks.
A lot of work, and I appreciate it because I'm being exposed to areas that I'm not that strongly educationally prepared, but still have some questions. I gather the fishing currently at Playa de Chivo is not one of the best.
It's actually pretty good, right?
Well, you mentioned $8.2 million. I
Yes.
gather that's capital investment. Are there any numbers on the O&M cost of chlorine and operations that it would require?
Yeah, the cost analysis is it's a rough estimate. It's a bit preliminary. As far as operation and maintenance cost goes, it would be something that would be firmed up in the final design cost once we get an idea of what would be required on site, what would be the required of training operators and whatnot, everything like that. That's when we'd be able to determine and finalize what exactly the numbers will be as far as operation and maintenance goes.
So essentially, this would be a government finance-supported project rather than paid by the users.
Yeah, it would be most likely government funded. Another option could be, since this outfall would improve ambient water quality standards, it could be a potential thing to reach out to different organizations, saying this is, going to improve water quality and perhaps get funding that way. But I believe it'd be more of a governmental funded procedure.
I'm curious, when you mentioned water quality standards,
Yes.
and there's a portion of your paper that mentioned Latin American standards. What standards are we talking about specifically?
I'm going to refer this one to Luke.
Well, the water quality standards that we used were from the 2009 Caribbean Environment Program. It had all of the classes that we have on our map, and it specified the standards, which all of our standards are met through dilution except for the fecal coliform standard. And that's met by chlorination. But outside of the mixing zone, there are several components of water quality requirements, and they're all met by the dilution.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.